Kody Brown's nephew, Benjamin Brown, has been vocal and public about his reaction to his Uncle Cody's show, Sister Wives. He's been very vocal on social media as well as his stand up comedy. You heard that right. He is a stand up comedian. If you didn't know, now you know. Benjamin recently, a few months ago, went on the Sarah Fraser Show podcast, and I'm going to tell you something. Huge shout out to the Sarah Fraser Show. She has got connections that your girl over here does not have. I appreciate and respect her hard work and her hustle. And I'm going to tell you something. I give credit where credit is due. I will link this episode, this YouTube video we are going to react to today in the description below this video. Please go watch in its entirety. It is over an hour long. You heard that right. Almost an hour and a half to be exact. I got a few interesting clips that I wanted to react to and share with you today.
So you do talk some of your polygamy, obviously, right? I mean, your life has to be just completely, it's a one-man show, really.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is I got lucky because I was able to connect to a really experienced kind of local comic who mentored me when I first got started. And what he told me is that there was really useful advice. Is he said that it's not that I have to tell or talk about polygamy constantly, and I don't, but it is that my background, the way I was raised, has created a certain view. Like there's a certain way that I see the world that's different and unique from how anyone else would, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very small world. It was very heavily controlled. We had very strict narratives about what the outside world was like, what we were like. And so like there are a lot of things that I just don't know. Like as an example, like we just talked about it. Stand-up comedy was not even in my world until I was in my 20s, right? I'm constantly like finding new, like I just listened to Nirvana for the first time like a year and a half ago. And so there's a lot of things about the world that people sort of assume that everyone knows. And to me, they're all really fresh. And so that kind of creates a really unique viewpoint that lets me kind of talk about things. So it's not necessarily that I don't want to just be a polygamous comic, but I do want to be able to show up in the world as someone who had a pretty isolating and abusive childhood, who's done a lot of work to heal from that and to kind of be in this world and to try to find the things about the world that are delightful, right? Like one of the things that I was raised to believe that the world was wicked and to be scared of the world. And when I came out, what I found mostly is that it's pretty great.
Oh, amazing, right? Amazing. And most people, 95% of everybody you meet, your neighbors, are like so kind, so helpful, like give you the shirt
so
off
lovely.
their back.
Yeah.
From any state in this country. Okay, you were a part of this like long time. I don't know how many generations, polygamist family. Obviously, your dad is Kody Brown's brother, who of course has been on TV talking about polygamy and polygamous lifestyle for 14 years. So you are how many generations a Mormon? You're kind of a division of the Mormon church. That is this.
Yeah. So the way to think about Mormonism is that
he basically just explains the whole history. We've heard it a gazillion times.
Get to fast forward to like the 1980s.
Yeah.
And in the 1980s, my family, the Brown family, is LDS. Okay. And they have been LDS for, at this point, I'm a seventh generation Mormon. So my dad is sixth. And so they've been Mormon this whole time. My dad, Cody, they serve LDS missions. And around that time, this is, if you've ever heard of or seen the show Under the Banner of Heaven.
Heard of it, have not watched it.
So there's this whole sort of thing there's sort of this resurgence in the 80s in the Mormon world on the fundamentals, right? And a big reason that happens is that just like with polygamy in the 1890s, in the 1970s, the LDS Church gets into trouble with the government again because of their doctrine of racism. So up until 1978, if you've watched like the Book of Mormon musical, in 1978, God changed his mind about Black people. What that means is in 1978, up until 1978, the LDS Church banned people who were Black from holding any kind of calling or any kind of place of authority in the church. They could not have, and they couldn't go to the temple. They could not receive the saving ordinances, right? Which was basically just a way for them to be white supremacist and racist. But with the passage of the Civil Rights Act and a lot of the sort of the integration and all of that that's happening in the 60s and 70s, by 1978, the federal government was like, look, LDS Church, either you stop doing this or we're going to take away your tax exempt status. We're not going to let BYU compete, in college.
Sure. Like, was your grandfather?
LDS is not polygamy. No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so your grandfather, meaning Cody's dad and your dad's dad, was not a polygamist. Is that
He
right?
was not a polygamist until much later in his life.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So your dad, his brother Cody are not raised like that, but then this division happens in the 80s, and even within the Brown family, some members decide, hey, we are going to start practicing polygamy. We're going to start practicing the older way.
Exactly. Yeah. So they start to dig into it and kind of they want to try to find who the true prophet is, and they end up finding the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren, which is run by a guy named, at this point, it's probably Rulin Allred, and they're like, okay, this is the guy. And so my grandpa, my dad, one of my aunts, actually a couple of my aunts, and later my uncle Cody, they all joined the AUB. And the AUB, that's the group that Christine is raised in.
Yep.
Mary is raised in the AUB. Janelle, of the other one of the OG wives, she's raised LDS, right? So, and the reason that I want that I like to start there, and one thing that I think it's important for people to understand is that those are all of those different ways of being raised are all under the broader umbrella of the Mormon cult, right? Yeah. And I use that term deliberately because what I'm saying is, if you're born into the Mormon cult, you're going to make certain assumptions about how the world works and about what's important, right? And one of those assumptions that you're going to make about how the world works is that there is a prophet, meaning that there's someone on earth who is the only person that is allowed to talk for God.
Right. Now, do you believe all Mormonism is a cult, or do you just think
100%? Yeah.
The whole thing, right?
So
we see, like, now we see it on reality TV in many forms, right? On Bravo, I'm sure you don't watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but there, some of the women are devout Mormons, a couple of them, most of them are left or whatever. But okay, but you believe the whole thing is
the whole thing. Yeah.
And I mean, Ben, you're obviously very smart, and you do, I'm sure, a lot in research of other religions. Is there any religion that you don't believe is a cult?
Well, so I'm using cult very specifically, right? So a cult is an organization that uses, this is Stephen Hassan's model, right? But it's an organization that uses behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control, right? So a cult is an organization that's going to try to control how people act by controlling the information that they have access to. What really worked for me, right? So coming out, the thing that really, because I had to leave in stages, right? So like I left the compound to go to school in 2007.
Okay.
2007 to 2010, so 3 years, I still believed the sect. I was still like in the belief system of the AUB, but I was living in this slightly wider world. And what eventually pushed me out of that, like pushed me from the polygamous world into the LDS world, was the doctrine of racism, right? So in the AUB, they what I told you earlier about this idea that if you're Black, you can't have the priesthood, right? Which is this magical made up thing that only special people get. But in the AUB, they still believe that, right? The only unpardonable sin that I could ever commit that would mean that I could not be forgiven and welcomed back into the AUB is if I had sex with a Black person. If I did that, that would fundamentally taint my my seed and I would be impure and I could still be like a servant, but I could not repent from that. That will permanently taint me. And
So your wife is Black, right? Or Hispanic?
so I exclusively date Black women.
Why not? Go all out.
I have thoroughly tainted myself.
Good.
Right. And I say that as like, I try to find humor in it and I try to like make light of it, but I also want to acknowledge too, like that's textbook white supremacy, right? Like that is, I was, and that's sort of this dark underbelly that on Sisterwise, they're not like, oh, look, we're going to talk like, isn't polygamy great? No, it's not. It's abusive to children and women, and it's wildly white supremacist. And so that's what's really happening in that world. And when I was a little boy, I was probably, 5 or 6 years old. And because I'm reading a lot, I read about like the civil rights movement and I read about the Martin Luther King Jr. And I even like, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool, right? This seems like a legit thing that maybe we shouldn't judge people based on, because I'm coming like as a child, I'm an outcast too, right? We're living in this community of LDS Mormons and we're the weird polygamous Mormons, right? We're the minority. And so I know what that feels like. And so I'm like, why would I want to do that to another person? And I remember hearing my parents and my dad especially talking about that doctrine and like talking about it being real and just feeling so sick and gross. Like I felt like this knot in my belly. And so when I'm at college, I get this opportunity to go to Uganda for a summer. So I go to Uganda for a summer and I'm teaching like teacher development classes to some high school and elementary school teachers out there, which is hilarious because I've never been to high school or elementary school. And I'm surrounded by all of these beautiful humans, and I feel the weight of my own internal white supremacy. And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't, this is not God. I can't be in this space. And so that's kind of the first breaking point for me. And when that breaks, I decide to join the LDS Church, because the LDS Church at this point is the least racist version of Mormonism. And I haven't yet gotten to the point where I'm willing to question all of Mormonism.
Sure.
Right. I can only because Mormonism is a giant hole.
Yeah.
Right? It's like huge, deep hole. Sure. And I'm down here on like level 9. So I can pull myself up to level 3, but that's kind of the first stage. And I'm LDS for about 5 years. And but as I'm LDS, I'm also starting to see parallels, right? I'm starting to see the ways in which this LDS church that I thought was different and better is actually very similar to this polygamous church. It's just it's a difference in kind and not in structure. So yeah, they do treat women better in the LDS church, but women don't have any actual authority in the LDS church. They're always dependent on what the leader, who is always a man, thinks. So yeah, they're treated better, but that's not because they have any more power. That's just because the men in charge have figured out that it is better to treat women better. Right?
Yeah. No, I think you're explaining it very well. Okay, so you have all these discoveries, right? And you eventually realize that you don't want to be a member of the Mormon church, period. Okay, how did that end with your family? And where is your family at today with you? Do you speak to them? Do you speak to your father? Are your 15 other siblings still in it? Have they followed you on TikTok? How is it?
So I don't know that any family members follow me on TikTok. I'm fairly, so like, again, for 7 generations, my family's been Mormon.
Yeah, huge.
And I'm not. And not only am I not, I'm very vocally not. And I'm like kick dirt in people's faces vocally, not right. Because I part of what I'm trying to use my platform for is to, you know, is to talk more about the hidden parts, right? To give voice to the people that are victimized and abused and manipulated in this worldview that we don't talk a lot about because we want to pretend like we're nice and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm not super close to, most of my siblings are still polygamist. I'm not super
Wow,
close to very many
really?
of them.
Even though
Yeah.
you guys are young. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my
And
gosh.
that's sort of a difference between like I know that most of Cody's kids have
Yeah, they all
decided not
torn off
to.
it.
I
So they
think
say, yeah.
the majority that credit for that to me is the show and really the exposure that they got to a wider world, right? So when Kody did that after I went to college and left, my family was like, circle the wagons. We're going to really limit and again bite. We're going to control their behavior by controlling the information and the thoughts that they think.
Well, were
So
they super threatened? Like, okay, so the Sister Wives started in 2010, sort of as this documentary. We're going to kind of look at this guy. He's courting this fourth wife. Uh, was your dad speaking to Kody at that point? Like, I mean, they
yeah,
must.
my dad was a big was fully in support of the show when it started. I don't know
Wow.
where he's at now, but I think that, I mean, because again, and this was Cody's thought, I think, going into it too. They believe that polygamy is the best,
Yeah, love should be multiplied.
right?
Yeah.
Love should be multiplied. So yeah, he was thrilled. He thought that it was going to be really important in like spreading the true the truth of polygamy. And I think what nobody realized is that it was going to do exactly that. It was going to tell the truth about polygamy. It's just the truth about polygamy wasn't what they were saying, it's what everyone was seeing.
I don't have any of the religious context, but when I watch season 1 and season 2, I look at 3 women, meaning Janelle, Mary, and Christine, as realizing that their husband is falling in love for the first time with another person, and
Yeah.
everything in their bodies, because they break down, they cry, they have these emotional reactions, are telling them that it is the end, because this man
Right.
has found the woman that he is going to be in love with. But to your point, whether they do it for sincerity, and by the way, they say that it was sincere, that they stuck with Kody. At least, Mary was just on my show. She says that it was sincere. They stay with him,
Yeah.
knowing and seeing him fall in love with another person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's because what they've been taught. So this is what Mormonism taught me, right? What Mormonism taught me was don't listen to your body.
Right.
Listen to what the prophet tells you, right? So don't listen to and so most of the work that I've done in therapy, the thing that's crazy to me about, and I don't know that anyone else has ever had this realization in therapy, but the big realization that I had in therapy was, oh, I can just trust myself.
Have you connected with your cousins, meaning the cousins on Sister Wives, all of Janelle's kids, Mary's child, Christine's? I mean, they seem like they've lived the most, I guess, similar situation. Are you close with any of them?
We hang out at like family reunions. We're kind of like the crew. So there's been a bunch of us now. Most of the extended family in my generation are no longer religious.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying, like, I
And
wondered if they've all connected with you, because it doesn't seem like any of them are religious. Some are gay, some are trans. I mean,
yeah.
they're really quite out there. And I think the show obviously has provided a whole different thing. I mean, they're on Patreon, they're on YouTube's making money, which is great. They should,
Oh, 100% they should.
cash
Yeah,
in.
I mean, so whenever I've connected with them, like at weddings or anything, I've always really enjoy my relationships with all of them. I don't feel like I'm particularly close with hardly anyone in my family.
Mm.
And I sort of like what I've sort of realized about that is that I think that in some ways it's easier when you've left a toxic family culture to when you're around other people from that family, you can sort of fall into, it's kind of just easier to be your old self, even if you're both trying to heal. And so I wonder sometimes if it's easier to heal outside of the context of family. When family has kind of been the place where you've been maybe the most wounded. It's just easier for me to be not who I was as a kid when I'm with people who never knew me that way.
Yeah. 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 I mean, maybe you guys never reconnect, or maybe, you do, because it seems like I would think that they would have a lot of similar things to say to you,
I would imagine that we're probably, and in the conversations that we've had, like we've been on similar pages. I think that it's just like they've got their lives and I've got my life, and we're out living life.
And you haven't heard from no one said anything to you about your TikToks, like because you put it out there, you're going to watch the shows. You haven't heard from anybody. I know I asked that because I know certainly Mary and Janelle and Christine, I think have said over the years, or at least their kids have said, that the kids say that they're not wild about them doing these YouTubes and things like that, but they understand it's their story. So I didn't know if you'd heard from anyone in the family.
Yeah, no one has talked to me about it, but also no one has talked to me about any of anything as I've left. Right. So, and I think that, I think that in some, I think that the people who are probably still, devout are maybe afraid to talk to me because I'm not, and I might seduce them, which I probably would. But yeah, no one's really been like, hey, here's what I think about your content.
Were you close with Garrison at all? I wonder how much the show affected his mental health. I mean, certainly his sister came out and said that, he was very much online and comparing himself to other people. Did you guys grow up together? Do you think?
No, Garrison was in a kind of a different age group. So I knew him, but we were never close. I do think that, like, the mental health is something that's so tricky. It's so delicate already. And I don't imagine that having your entire childhood made public without your consent was great. I can't imagine that was a healthy thing for anyone, really.
Ben, I have to imagine, I want you to promote your book, promote your TikTok, and I have to imagine people that have come from religious groups, cults, Mormonism, have probably been reaching out to you left and right to say, hey, me too. I've been through
similar. That's been kind of fun. It's been so a lot of what's funny is that the ex-Mormon journey is similar to a lot of like ex-evangelicals or ex-Catholics or anyone who was raised in a
Orthodox.
Loved the interview and everything that they talked about. Like I said at the beginning of the video, please click the description, click the link, and it will take you right to the full episode. It is over an hour long. Go listen to it in its entirety. Go subscribe to the Sarah Fraser Show podcast. Huge shout out to her again. And I hope you meet me in the comments below with your thoughts and opinions. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe if you're new here, and hit that notification bell besides subscribe. Make sure it's set to all so you'll be notified whenever I upload. This beautiful family, Sister Wives, will be back with a brand new episode Sunday. You know when that is? Tomorrow, exclusively on TLC at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I love you for watching. I'll see you in my next video or in the comments below.